and related to the topic being discussed. The views expressed on Sound Off are those of the hosts or callers and do not represent the opinion of 96.7 The Eagle, Spoon River Media LLC, or the sponsors. The Liquor Vault on-air line is now open for your calls or texts at 219-362-0522. This is Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Sound Off. Today is Friday, October 14th. I got a bad case of the Monday on Fridays. Sorry. It's good to have you on the show today. We are bringing you coverage of your political candidates here on 96.7 The Eagle. Those that will be on your ballot. If you maybe even started to go to the vote, some people have early voted. I'm a same-day voter. I'm an election day voter, but I do support the right of those who want to vote early because of different things happening in their lives, schedules. My wife is a ICU nurse that works nights and has a weird schedule. So for people like that, having different times to vote, different opportunities is a good thing, because I still believe in democracy, and the more people that vote, the better. So we've got today another show for you, candidates that are going to be on your ballot. Now, we're at the point now where we're going to be introducing you to some candidates here in LaPorte County that aren't on everyone's ballot. They might be a state representative. They might be, I think on Monday we got Paul Sturry coming on the show, who is a United States representative candidate for District 2. And if you remember right, the districts now divide the city of LaPorte. Half of LaPorte is on District 2. Half of LaPorte in Michigan City is on District 1. And so things have just changed. So we got to bring you as many candidates as you can so you know what's going on. Now, we're not taking calls today, though I know the bumper did. But if you want to ask a question, you're welcome to do that. Give me a text at 219-362-0522. Or you can also email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com, and I'd be happy to read that. If you're streaming with us on Facebook Live or YouTube, you can also put your questions in the comments, and I will make sure that the candidate gets to read it. Now, we did invite both candidates for Indiana State Senate District 4 today, but only one is here. The other did not ever respond back. So this race, for those of you on the western part of the county, I'm talking to you in Westville and Michigan City. This is your Senate District, State Senate District 4. Candidates are Republican Jeff Larson and Democratic incumbent Rodney Pohl Jr. On Google Meet today, we've got Rodney Pohl Jr. How are you, Rodney? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing well. Can you hear me right?
I got you, buddy. Thanks so much for joining. I know campaign season's been a lot. You've been a little under the weather, so I appreciate you still doing the show, though. Even if it's through digital means, it's good to have you here.
I appreciate it, man. You got a great show, great program. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I knew that I just didn't want to come in there and get you guys sick as well.
Yeah, and on behalf of all the staff here, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. If I remember right, Rodney, you filled in, or you got caucused in, if I remember right, for in your first position, right? You did not get elected to that other than the caucus. Is this, maybe I'm wrong here, but is this your first actual big election that you're running?
Yes, for myself, correct. I mean, I was caucused in to fill the position for Karen Talion. She left her position about a year early. So it's almost a year to the date that I got caucused in. And it's actually one of the first times that I've run, or it is the first time that I've ever run for an office. I've been involved with campaigns pretty much my whole life. But when you get a legendary legislator like Karen Talion that says, I've been watching your work, I've been watching how you operate with local government, your connection to all the different communities in the district, and you're young, you're a go-getter, you got the right ideas, fit right in with what she believed as somebody who was a good representative of all the constituents in District 4. You kind of have to say, yes, all right, let's do this. And I've always been behind the scenes working, for different political candidates and different municipal governments. But now it's, kind of put it all together and really use those connections to represent District 4 as best as possible.
So I'm interested then. So you've essentially served a year. You said you served a year in the Senate. You had a term in there, a cycle in there of legislating. What were some of the things that you learned as an outsider coming in there as somebody that didn't have that legislative experience but now has a year under your term? And why did you want to run again?
So it's funny. Actually, I did have experience as an intern working at the state house, and my first day as an intern was Senator Karen Tallion's first day as a state senator. Back in 2006, we both, walked into the state house for the 2006 session at the exact same, on the exact same day. And it's just kind of serendipitous that I ended up replacing her. But it was absolutely wild. Even though I was an intern and I'd seen kind of how the state house had worked, being an actual legislator and having conversations that, as an intern I wasn't, privy to, and seeing how people actually were able to work across the aisle, and being an individual that really kind of built a reputation for being able to work across the aisle, being able to work with, like, for example, Senator Mike Bahacek, who represents most of LaPorte County, and he and I have a really great relationship, a very strong working relationship where we're just looking out for Northwest Indiana. We don't talk about, you Democrats or you Republicans. It's like us in Northwest Indiana, what's going to be best for us. And how easy that really was, given the national narrative, I think, of how divisive politics could be. I think that was probably one of the most positive aspects of it. Now there obviously will be certain things we don't vote exactly on, but by and large, that was definitely one of the best parts of serving this last session.
Well, we've got Rodney Pohl Jr. here on the show today. He is running for election for Indiana State Senate District 4. If you have a question, 219-362-0522. Yeah, we did invite his opponent, Republican Jeff Larson, though he did not return any of our emails to him. I want to talk a little bit about some of your legislative priorities. Let's not be coy here. Indiana has a supermajority Republican legislator, which means Republicans can essentially get done whatever they want to get done because they don't require any Democratic votes. So as a Democrat that is running for election, how can you get things done for the people that you represent when technically your bills don't even have to be heard because, again, it's a supermajority?
It's great. That's a really great question. So we actually, kind of what I was talking about before, I work very, very closely with the individuals across the aisle, and we were able to put party aside on particular issues. There were bills last year that I had drafted and then given to some of my Republican counterparts. I'd work very closely with Ed Charbonneau, for example, on a bill that would take kind of a stagnant fund that has really no use for it anymore, and return the proceeds in that fund, or the actual the money in that fund, to the municipalities that paid into that fund, and working with him and saying, hey, it might be a little bit hard for me to get this bill through, but if you file it, maybe we have an opportunity to get some traction on that. And it's just kind of an example of how we can work together. It's very important that you represent you represent your community the best, and the individuals that elected you to get down there, but you also have to do so in a way that you're not alienating them, that you're not alienating District 4 by being the individual that goes down there and just tosses, political jabs at everybody. And that's just the only thing that you're doing is ensuring that nobody's going to listen to you. So you have to be collaborative. You have to be open-minded. You have to understand what it's like in other districts as well. You have to be able to understand that, Northwest Indiana, we have to represent our interests, but you also have to be mindful of that's not exactly the issues that we face may not be the issues that Rushville or Greentown, or not Greenstown, Greensville or Greensburg or Evansville or somewhere else down in southern Indiana is facing. So it's finding that fine line between advocacy, looking out for everybody in your district, and then also making sure not to alienate them.
All right, we've got Rodney Pohl Jr., who's running for election in Indiana State Senate District 4. If you're in Michigan City or Westville or the western part of LaPorte County, that is probably your district that he's running in. If you have a question, 219-362-0522. You can text me. We're not taking calls during this, to give the candidates more opportunity to answer questions and to talk about their policies, these kind of thing. We're going to take our first break. I want to get some questions about policy, abortion, education, these kind of things that will likely come up in the future for our Senate and representative legislators. We're going to take a really quick break, though, but we'll be right back here. Keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Hi, friends. Chief Deputy Ron Heeg here, and your Republican candidate for LaPorte County Sheriff. I'm a 25-year veteran of the Sheriff's Office, starting my career within the jail, working my way through the ranks to my current role of having the honor to serve as Sheriff Boyd's Chief Deputy. My campaign consists of 3 strategic goals: public safety, personnel investment, and community investment. I'm married to my wife, Heather, and we live in Kankakee Township with our daughters, Olivia and Allison. I humbly ask for your vote honored before November 8th. Paid for by Heeg for Sheriff.
And now the best man.
I was going to plan this speech out while I got my oil change, but I went to take 5 and it was a lot faster than I thought, so here goes. Okay. Tim, you were my first friend. Angela, you were my first. Yeah, I never thought the two of you would make it, but I guess love really is blind. No, I mean in a good way.
At Take 5, your oil change is faster than you think. Take 5, the stay-in-your-car 10-minute oil change.
Hello, this is Sheila Brilson-Matias, and I'm running for re-election as your LaPorte County Commissioner. Voters have 2 choices in this election. Follow a path of disdain, disrespect, and quite frankly, discord and dishonesty, or let's talk about what's really important to you in your daily life. I work for you. I remain focused on creating good-paying jobs, expanding broadband for everyone, listening to real people, solving real problems that impact you. You know me. I raised my family here, so I understand your concerns. It's important to have a commissioner that can hear you, and I'm always listening. I will keep up my focus on civility, respectful discourse, and inclusion. I have done it before, I am doing it now, and with your vote, I will do it again. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 8th for me, Sheila Brilson-Matias, LaPorte County Commissioner. For me, it's not about politics, it's about people. Paid for by the committee to re-elect Sheila Matias.
No job is too big or too small. Auto body specialties, we do it all. Quality's #1 in auto body repair. To get fixed up, you know where. Foreign or domestic, we're your local shop. All work guaranteed, but we're hard to top. No job is too big or too small. Auto body specialties, we do it all.
Inflation is hitting everyone hard, some more than others. But if you find yourself struggling with debt, wage garnishment, foreclosure, or lawsuits, attorney David Ambers and his staff are here to help relieve your stress. A fresh start is just a phone call away. Call the office of David Ambers, attorney at law, and schedule your free bankruptcy consultation today. 219-325-9917. David Ambers, attorney at law, 601 State Street, Suite B in LaPorte. Call them today, 219-325-9917.
Vote Fagan 2022. Who is Sean Fagan? He's a lawyer. He's a Republican. Sean Fagan, running for LaPorte County Prosecutor 2022. Sean Fagan knows that LaPorte County is a great place to live, and he wants to keep it that way. Sean Fagan for LaPorte County Prosecutor 2022. Be safe. Be strong. Let's work together. Vote Sean Fagan 2022. This message paid for by Fagan for Prosecutor.
Michiana weather.
59 this afternoon, under mainly cloudy skies, southwesterly winds 15 to 20 miles per hour. Chance for scattered showers tonight, 35. Tomorrow, high of 53. From the Weather Center at HometownNewsNow.com. Right now, 53.
Your opinion matters. We invite you to share it by calling or texting the Liquor Ball on-air line at 362-0522. That's 362-0522. Now, back to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. Again, don't listen to the bumper. Just text me, 219-362-0522. I don't have control over the bumper. I would have changed it for you already. But we are giving as much time to candidates to talk as possible. I'm not lying to you. I'm being honest with you. Sometimes our callers, as I love them with all my heart, can again, be a little long-winded. And so we tried to give as much time to the candidates to answer questions because, again, there's just not enough forums. There's not enough opportunities for you to get to know your candidates. But if you do have a question, I do want to ask it, just text it to me, 219-362-0522, or email me, soundoff@967theeagle.com. All right, let's get back to our candidate today. We invited both candidates for State Senate District 4, which, again, if you were not listening before, is Michigan City, Westville area, all the way into northern Porter County. Candidates there are Republican Jeff Larson and Democrat Rodney Pohl Jr. Rodney, help me figure out, this is an actual election-related question, because I'm not even sure. Do I call you the incumbent? I figure I do, because you're serving in that position, but you didn't win you got caucused in, but you're still an incumbent,
Correct.
right? Legally.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
I don't want to mess that up, because if I do, I will get 5 texts about it, calling me a hack. So, but if you do have a question, 219-362-0522, feel free to text me. All right, I want to get to some legislative questions because, again, once you're elected a representative or a senator, you are part of one body making a decision for all of Indiana. One of the topics that's probably been on, you've been asked about, or that's been, I know, in the media significantly, is Indiana's stance on abortion. Indiana now, after Roe v. Wade was struck down by the Supreme Court, now states get to decide what their abortion policies will be. Indiana already had some of the most restrictive abortion policies before that, now even more so. For those that are, have a lot of concerns about abortions, or abortion rights or women's rights, where does that stand in the legislature? And what, if you were elected, what would you plan to do about it?
So it's a really great question, and really kind of to explain how this whole process went down. That Dobbs decision came down in June. The governor had announced a special session, which only the governor can do. He is the only person that has the legal right to call the legislature back into session, and you have to have an emergency situation to do so. So Governor Holcomb said, the gas prices are high and inflation is high. We need to provide economic relief to our Hoosiers. And, I 100% agreed with Governor Holcomb on that. I thought that was a great idea. Indiana's gas tax is very, very high as opposed to our counterparts, and that's because of the funding formula for our roads and infrastructure. It's based on the prices of, whatever the price of gas is in the month prior, that's what the taxes are based on. And we had this $6 billion surplus, and we said, you know what? We should absolutely take some of that surplus, which is taxpayer money, and give relief at the pump to our Hoosiers as a result of that. And instead, we talked about pretty much removing women's personal autonomy and their rights to control their own body the entire special session. And it's really unfortunate because that was not anywhere in the proclamation by the governor to call us into special session. So we were the first state in the union to address this legislatively following the Dobbs decision. And, we did so in a 2-week session. I sat through every committee, even though I didn't sit on the actual committees. I was present for the testimony of countless, it was hours and hours and hours of testimony of individuals that were experts in the medical field, in the education field, in social services, in housing, in you name it. We had everything from OBGYNs that were sounding the alarm saying, we're going to lose doctors that don't want to be prosecuted for, providing, medical attention and medical services to women, needing essentially a lawyer in the room. Some of them were scared that, obviously they the idea of, okay, well, life of the mother is an exception. At what point do they have to have a legal determination as to how close a woman is to death in order to provide the needed services to her without the criminal liability, under this new draconian abortion ban? And so, that was one of the aspects of it. Some folks say, oh, well, there's such, we could just use the adoption system. And, you heard testimony about 27,000 kids being in the adoption system currently without a place to go. And very, very few actually finding permanent homes and permanent locations. And the idea that you would inundate a system that was already overworked and underfunded, just like our education system. So it's there was a whole lot of testimony saying, we're not ready for this. We're not funding the social services that we would need for these. We're not paying attention to what the actual ramifications are for this. And on the other side, you really only heard an issue of morality and personal beliefs. And, it just, those two things didn't balance. There was definitely, particularly in a 2-week special session, to make such a massive change like that. So we know that that's going to continue to be an issue, as are probably a number of other privacy rights that have been decided by the United States Supreme Court that are now potentially getting kicked back to the legislature. Privacy rights that a lot of us across the aisle really truly cherish as Americans. And unfortunately, the way that I foresee it is, unless we can get out of the idea of taking away these rights, that's going to become a focus as opposed to what we need to be focusing on, which are quality of life measures in our state, an underfunded education system, a system that, the childcare costs are through the roof. We have a housing crisis. We have all of these other issues that we should be addressing, but, potentially the argument can go back now to, marriage equality or something like that. It's been decided and we should be moving past it. But
all right.
But yeah.
Moving on. I do have some other questions. You brought up earlier in that answer about inflation, these kind of things. Obviously, inflation is happening all over the globe. But you are a senator right now and running for election in Indiana. Is there anything state level or legislatively that the state can do to hopefully make it better for consumers, for residents, as we all fight inflation at the gas pumps and in the grocery stores? Because again, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, doesn't matter. We're all feeling it. So what can be done legislatively, and what do you propose to be done in the Senate that can potentially help residents?
Well, one of the things that was being proposed and debated this last, that was supposed to be debated was, the return of the surplus, some of the surplus funds that had been collected to taxpayers, as a means to make up for what the higher costs of all these household items are. While inflation is high. Now we're starting to see inflation go back down, through the natural course of economics, where people are just buying less, as interest rates start to go up. But as it pertains, particularly to the gas tax, our idea was, let's suspend it and use use the funds that are in our surplus to fund our, to essentially make up for, for the gas tax that would have been collected while the suspension is underway. So for the next year, essentially at a sliding scale, we'll start at zero gas tax, and then every month for the next 12 months, essentially restore that until, every month until it's back to the normal amount, when you would hope that the prices would have dropped by then. So,
all right, we have a question here, education question. My child did not have a bus pickup. They don't have enough drivers here in the school system, and partially they can't find enough, people that want to do the work. Unemployment's low, but they also don't pay very well. What can the state do, not only to pay teachers better, but also to fund our staff better, so that all these other cursory services have funds to operate as they should?
Absolutely. Number one is funding. We have a state that underfunds our education system. We're spending about 17% less now than we were a decade ago, when they changed the funding formula for the state, for the state education district, or the school districts. We really need to, and this is across the board. This is what many economists that focus on Indiana are saying. You guys underfund your public education system. So as a result of that, you're going to have a higher ratio of teacher to student ratios. So essentially, you're going to have more kids in a classroom, which makes it harder to get a great education. We saw some districts that went back to virtual last year, not because of COVID, but because they didn't have bus drivers. And these were districts in Indianapolis, outside of Indianapolis, that were fairly affluent areas, but no one's going to take a job, that pays essentially minimum wage and has very wonky hours, particularly when, you don't have, certain bargaining rights have been stripped from both teachers and education support professionals. So I've had a number of conversations, with individuals across the aisle, some of the senators and representatives across the aisle. I had a conversation with the chair of the Education Committee, Jeff Rotz, this last special session, where I talked to him and said, obviously, funding is one big issue. We definitely have the capacity to fund our education system in a better way. Two is just essentially respect for our teachers and for our education support professionals, and the respect and dignity to not push very divisive legislation that kind of puts them under attack quite a bit, like we fought last year. But also to restore some collective bargaining rights. They stripped all collective bargaining rights except for the ability to bargain for your pay and for your benefits. But we're talking about, the rest of the bargaining rights that would be, really, really beneficial to our teachers. So, for example, what their classroom size could be, as a maximum. What their health and safety standards are, how much prep time do they get during the day? These are things that they used to be able to bargain for, but they were stripped of those rights about 12 or 13 years ago. And, as a result, you don't see other public servants or people in these, public service positions that have those rights stripped from them. That we would never do that to our public safety officers. We would never do that to, to any of the other public service entities that have those rights. So just restoring some of the most basic ones, and letting them be able to decide what their classroom is going to look like or what their school is going to look like. So,
all right, we've got Rodney Pohl Jr. on the show today. Rodney is running for election in State Senate District 4. He's the incumbent Democrat. Republican Jeff Larson was invited to the show but was not able to show up. Again, if you have a question, text me 219-362-0522. We do have a question here, but we're going to get to that right after break. It's about referendums and things like that in Indiana. Again, thank you so much for listening. We're trying to give you as much access to who's on your ballot as possible so that you can make informed decisions, even for your local candidates. Just because it's local, I would even argue, especially since it's local, you should know your candidates and, what they stand for and what they believe, because oftentimes, even the local candidates, their decisions impact you in great ways. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back here with Rodney Pohl Jr. only on 96.7 The Eagle.
Come into Bell Tire today. You'll get the lowest tire price, period. Like $70 off a set of 4 Michelin tires. You'll also get a guy who will give you free lifetime flat repairs, tire rotations, and alignment checks. Get $70 off a set of 4 Michelin tires. Plus more free services and more out of your tires and more for your money. It's how we make the lowest tire price feel even lower at Bell Tire. See store and belltire.com for details and offer expiration.
Hi, this is Andy Heineck, candidate for LaPorte County Sheriff. As a military veteran and a 22-year member of the Sheriff's Office who has worked in every division, I believe I have the experience to be your next sheriff. My goals once elected are reduce recidivism amongst the inmates, expand our mental health services, and focus on the heroin epidemic. I've dedicated my life to serving our community, and I'm asking for your support. Please vote Andy Heineck for sheriff. Paid for by the committee to elect Heineck sheriff.
Hey, LaPorte County, Surf's fiber internet is more reliable and 25 times faster than cable. Get 1 gig speed and 2 free Eero whole home Wi-Fi routers for only $65 a month. No contracts and free installation at a price that's locked for life. That's right. The price you pay today won't jump up each year like cable. They are expanding to more neighborhoods every day. Visit surfinternet.com to check your address or call 844-955-SURF for details. That's 844-955-SURF. This is a limited time offer and restrictions may apply.
Hi, I'm Connie Grammarosa, and I'm running for LaPorte County Commissioner, currently serving on the County Council. As a conservative, I have always asked the tough questions, being fiscally responsible with your tax dollars. I will serve with honesty and integrity and be an ambassador for all of LaPorte County. Serving is not just a mission, it's my passion. I ask for your vote on or before November 8th. I'm Connie Grammarosa, and I approve this message.
My name is Ryan Seberg, and I am running for the LaPorte School Board. I am a proud husband, father, and business owner who is deeply invested in the LaPorte community. I want to give back to the school corporation that has given my family so much, creating safe, nurturing, and supported schools that provide an optimal learning environment for our teachers and kids is my top priority. I bring proven leadership and a businessman's approach to the board. On November 8th, vote Seberg for LaPorte School Board.
paid for by the committee to elect Ryan Seberg to school board. And welcome to Auto Dealer Jeopardy.
Alex, can I have Laporte Auto Dealers for 100, please?
This Laporte dealer has been in the same family for nearly 50 years. Yes, Max.
What is Laporte Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram?
That is correct.
Alex, I'll take Laporte Auto Dealers for 200, please.
This dealer is the home of the lifetime powertrain warranty on nearly every new and pre-owned car they sell. Max again.
What is Laporte Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram?
You are correct.
Hey, is Laporte Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram the only answer?
Well, yes, they are. On Pine Lake Avenue or online at laportechrysler.net. Join 96.7 The Eagle every Sunday morning from 9 to 9:30 a.m. for Bethany Church's Sound Up. Enlighten your Sunday morning with inspirational words of faith from Pastor Dennis Meyer. Bethany Church's Sound Up every Sunday morning from 9 to 9:30 a.m. on 96.7 The Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to Sound Off. You can now text or email your questions directly to the studio. Call or text 362-0522 or email your questions to soundoff@967theeagle.com. This is Sound Off.
Welcome back, friends, for our final segment of Sound Off. If you've got a question, text me 219-362-0522 or email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. We've got State Senate, Indiana State Senate District 4 candidates. Our candidate, Rodney Pohl Jr., in this on Google Meet. Sorry, I'm so used to saying in the studio. But his opponent, Jeff Larson, Republican, was not able to show today, so we just have a conversation with Rodney Pohl Jr., and it's been a joy to have you on the show today, Rodney. A question for you from one of our listeners, and honestly, it's a question that I think is something that I've always wondered about, you know, especially with abortion and different things like this. We saw that Kansas went to a referendum on abortion, and I think it was Kansas anyway. Indiana, though, is not a referendum state. Other than, I think, some school district stuff for funding, they don't typically allow referendums. So the question would you be open to discussions on restructuring local government? It may even possibly require constitutional referendums or amendments.
Oh, I'll say this. I'm a massive advocate for local control. I think, you know, LaPorte is very different than Michigan City. Michigan City is very different than Portage. Portage is different than Chesterton, and they have different needs. I definitely think that, you know, we should absolutely have more local control, because really individuals in those cities have so much more. If you had local control, they have much more of a say in the process, and they'll probably be much more engaged. Now, if you're for example, you know, I'm in District 4, and District 4 got more blue when they did redistricting, which, you know, some people would say, oh, well, that's good for you. And I don't think that that's good for everybody. I don't think that you know, that provides for a healthy democracy if individuals that are in my district that might be Republican, that say, you know, well, why should I even vote? You know, the district is so lopsided, I'm not going to engage. That's not good for a healthy, you know, democracy. And I do, you know, with the referendum issue, like what did happen in Kansas, that happened while we were in special session. And it was definitely something we made a point of. You know, if you put these issues to a statewide ballot initiative, you're likely going to learn how, you know, even though the state is very red as it's drawn up by districts that are, you know, that look like these really weird shapes and forms that kind of make sure that they get certain voters, you know, located within those districts, you're going to find out that on this issue, particularly abortion, you know, when we've done our surveys and polls statewide, it's like 70% say, you know, we shouldn't be messing with the law. Leave it as it is. The law was 22 weeks, and now it's a complete ban except for these exceptions. One real quick note on those exceptions. This next legislative session, everybody should be aware that those exceptions are going to be up for debate. The exceptions currently are rape, incest, life of the mother, and fetal anomaly. We know that, you know, there were a majority of those across the aisle that voted to remove those exceptions, and we don't think that that is representative of Indiana at all. I don't think the legislation as is was representative, and I don't think that the further cutting into the exceptions and you know, the idea that you would have somebody that would vote in favor of a 10-year-old, like for example the young girl out of Ohio, the 10-year-old that was raped and got pregnant and had to come to Indiana in order to terminate a pregnancy. I think that that's a situation that goes far beyond most Hoosiers' comfortability as far as the government intrusion into people's lives.
So I want to touch on a topic that you brought up here. You mentioned that your district, Indiana State Senate 4, got more blue, and there's certainly districts that got more red as well. Because, again, I feel, again, we could talk about the political ramifications of redistricting and things like this. Would you favor Indiana moving to an independent redistricting kind of redistricting process?
100%. I absolutely believe that, we should be as representative and fair as possible. And I say that as somebody that likely benefited from redistricting. I don't think that is, I don't think that that's good for the state. I don't think that's good for our democracy. I think an independent coalition should draw the lines and say, okay, this is what, it shouldn't be the political parties, because obviously they're going to be prone to consolidate power and make it easy for themselves, regardless of the party. And we see this in Democratic states. We see this in Republican states. That's not it's essentially it's a gamesmanship in a system that shouldn't be, corrupted like that. So I 100% would support an independent, commission drawing those lines and basically saying, okay, this is a certain township that, the individuals in this township are, geographically, this is the equal to this, not necessarily, well, so-and-so wants these voters, so we're going to go down this road and everybody on this road is going to be in this district, but across the street, they're going to be in this district. That doesn't make any sense to me. So.
All right, we've got Rodney Pohl Jr., Democratic incumbent for Indiana State Senate District 4. A question for you, Rodney. If you get elected or reelected, in January starts a new legislative session. What are some of the legislative session or some of the legislation policies and values that you have in that next legislation legislative session you have?
First and foremost will be education. We're going into a budget year. We absolutely need to fund our education system in a better way. We also need to restore some of those collective bargaining rights. And I have had some positive conversations I had mentioned earlier with the chair of the education committee. I also believe that, one of the systems that we have that I think everybody, that has ever fallen hard on their luck has had an issue with is our unemployment system. I've had some conversations with some folks downstate to address some of the issues with unemployment that were kind of brought to light, particularly during the pandemic when the system started getting overloaded. We want to make sure that when somebody loses their job and they've been paying, particularly when they've been paying into the unemployment system, those that it's a slap on the face that they've been, some individuals that have been paying into it, but then had issues receiving the benefits, once they lost their job, not to their own fault. That's something that we definitely need to fix. Last year we did an increase in our workers' compensation system. I mean, these are these quality of life issues that we think, we really need to be making sure that we're protecting those that, that are most vulnerable. In addition to that, I would say, real quickly, addressing our coal ash issue. I've been working on with Representative Boy on that, and then marijuana legalization. That's been a big initiative. We had a summer study committee a couple of weeks ago. Us in Northwest Indiana, we see what's happened in Michigan. I think we're supporting the dispensaries in the southern portion of Michigan. Like 60% of their clientele are Indiana Hoosiers. And yet we continue to, support an illicit market here, an underground market, and keep putting people in jail and making people lose their jobs over something that's just legal across the state lines. There are so many reasons why we should move forward, and we've seen 38 other states that have moved forward and none of them have gone back on it. None of them have said, okay, well, we made a mistake. And I think Indiana is really just blowing money at this point instead of regulating this in a way that I think would be much more beneficial. Probably the loudest advocates are veterans, and veterans and individuals from the workforce. They've been sounding the alarm forever. Hey, we need people that we can get in the door, and veterans are basically saying we want the medical benefits of this without having to be put on the pharmaceuticals that keep getting fed to us. So,
all right. Well, Rodney Pohl Jr., it's a joy to have you on the show, just like all of our other candidates. Where can people find you online?
RodneyForIndiana.com. You can find me on social media, Rodney for Indiana. That is, we're very accessible. Love answering questions. Love getting engaged with the public. And then I may be knocking on some of your doors here in the next couple of weeks. God willing.
All right. Well, I hope you feel better. I want to thank again Rodney Pohl Jr., Democratic incumbent for State Senate District 4. If you're in Michigan City or Westville area, he is going to be on your ballot. His opponent, Jeff Larson, Republican, will be on there as well. Jeff was invited, but could not make the show today. Again, I want to thank you so much for listening. We're going to have more candidates for you in the future. We've got Secretary of State candidate coming on. We're hoping to have some school board candidates as well. If you know, or if you are a LaPorte school board member running for election, please contact me. Email me at nate@hometownnewsnow.com. It is a little bit harder to find your information online if you don't have a Facebook page, these kind of things, or a website. But I'd love to give you an opportunity to come on the show if you can. Again, nate@hometownnewsnow.com. I'll get you on there. If you know somebody that's running for school board, give that message to them as well. We'll be back here on Monday where Paul Sturry, who is the candidate running in the 2nd District U.S. Representative Democratic race, is going to be on the show. Be back then on Friday. Next Friday, actually, we're taking a break from election. We'll have Mayor Tom Dermody back on the show because he's knocking down my door to get back to you guys. He just misses the listeners, and they'll be there. So, yeah. All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for listening. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. Keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Thank you for joining us and voicing your opinion on this edition of Sound Off. The views on Sound Off are those of the host or callers and do not represent the opinion of 96.7 The Eagle, Spoon River Media LLC, or the sponsors. Sound Off airs every Monday and Friday at 12:30. Please mark your calendar and join us again for the next edition of Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Hi, this is Chris Stapleton.
Hi, this is Kane Brown. Hey, this is Luke Combs.
This is your home for country music variety is 96.7 The Eagle, WCOE FM LaPorte.
Let's look at the forecast at 96.7 The Eagle, brought to you by the Pink Sheep Children's Boutique.
The charming and affordable